Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays! Here's what I've been working on for the past few weeks in no particular order. It was getting tedious to manually edit the data for each train and impossible to compare them for balancing purposes, so I developed a tool that can import and export their data from a CSV spreadsheet. CSV, or comma-separated values, stores this as this. Each line is one entry and all values are separated by a comma. Simple. But what if a single value has multiple lines? The intended solution is to wrap those values with double quotes. Use these line breaks, but not these ones. Easy for a human to spot, tricky for code to spot. Most languages have libraries or packages to handle this exact problem. C# is no different with CSV helper. However, I could not figure out how to install this into Unity, as doing so requires terminal shenanigans that elude me. In theory, it's just a single command. In practice, something in my own Unity project folder isn't set up to the standard way, so this command is failing. What exactly is causing this to fail? I don't know, nor have I been able to figure out. So instead, I rolled out my own CSV parser. I changed the commas to pipes and added $signs to indicate the end of each row. Hey, if it's stupid but it works, it's not stupid. Now I can edit and balance all the data for my trains from a single spreadsheet. Now the speed options change depending on what engine you've built, if any. Also the backgrounds now match your speed and show a preview of where you will move. An engine's speed options are stored with the data, letting me use my new CSV script to edit them. I was able to use this CSV pipeline to automatically tag certain keywords so in-game they appear a different color or can have an icon appear next to them. I might even one day have them linked to the in-game guide pages I've implemented. These are still a work in progress, but at the moment I have around 100 pages because there is a page for every train, resource, and station in the game. More on those later. Now, for the longest time, the player never really had clear objectives to work towards. They have the main objective, which is to max out this hope bar, but the way they're supposed to increase this is by completing various objectives or demands that their citizens will have. So I finally started implementing those. At the moment, I think the demands will include a variety of resources that the player must make in a set number of turns. For example, make 100 rations within 25 turns. As the game proceeds, the amount of resources and number of demands will increase. For example, I want stations to have their own demands. Stations are another big feature I've begun working on. At set locations on the map, the player can build a station and assign workers to them. Stations will produce resources, just like train cars, but at a larger amount with the trade-off of taking several turns. For example, the forestry station can produce, say, 200 wood every 10 turns. The catch is that the players must be at that station to pick up the resources. In the future, I want these stations to also have their own demands the player must complete or risk the station falling apart. Demands and stations are something I'm still very much working on, but will be a core part of the game. Changing gears a little bit, I've been dreading the process of getting a build of my game uploaded onto Steam. I was under the impression that it would be a very tedious and complicated process. It was not. It could be, but thanks to a tutorial I found that I'll link below, it was incredibly easy. To be clear, I'm just talking about getting a build of my game onto Steam and not releasing it or going through certification. To even get a build onto Steam, I thought I would need my game to be connected to the Steamworks API, which is written in C++, but Unity is in C#. So I thought I would need to wrangle some third-party plugin just to upload my game to Steam. It turns out I don't. Well, I still need to do that if I want to implement various Steam features like Steam achievements or cloud saves, which I do, but that's a future me problem. So now, even though the game is not public, I can play it from my very own Steam library, which feels awesome. After figuring out how to upload builds to Steam, I began automating the process. As any good programmer does, I put together a terminal script that can make builds from Unity and upload them to Steam. Could I do this process manually? Yes! It only takes a few minutes, but it's nice to be able to just push a button and have a new build on Steam. Especially once my game is live, having this in place will help me get patches out even faster. Also, having the script in place lets me expand upon it in the future, if I ever start having to manage multiple builds of my game at once. This got me thinking about a potential worst case scenario. As a game dev, how many different builds could I be having to manage at once? 2, 3, 5? Try 20 plus! How in the world did I come up with that number? Well, let's start by thinking what separates builds. First, you have a full game, and maybe a demo. But what if you also want to release on Windows, Mac, and Linux? Each of those needs a demo as well. If you're releasing a game on Steam and want to include stuff like Steam achievements and cloud saves, you need unique builds that can connect to those Steam's API. This also means if you happen to be releasing on other PC platforms like Epic, Itch, or the Windows Store, each of those builds needs to be at least separate so they're not including Steam API, and maybe even unique if they're accessing their own APIs. This is starting to add up. You could also, on top of this, have web builds, mobile builds, and console builds. Any of those given builds could have their own dev build for testing, and you could also have unique showcase versions of any of these builds for in-person conventions. And we haven't even added localization into the mix. Obviously, this is an excessive example, and I can't really think of any game that actually has this many builds, short of something, say, like maybe Minecraft. But for me personally, if I have one script that can automatically make and deploy all one or many of these builds at once, that will be a huge benefit to me in the future. Not just for this game, but honestly for any game I make going forward. In fact, I'm already getting some good use out of this script. Now, recently I've gotten a chance to show off my game at a few local indie developer meetups. Through these events, I was able to get some invaluable feedback and playtesting data on my game. The biggest feedback I've been getting is that the tutorial and opening few minutes need some major reworking. Many of the playtesters were confused on kind of what the big picture goal they were aiming for in the game, as well as many were stumped on how a few of the key systems in the game even worked. However, a few playtesters did manage to figure this out, and those who did went on to play for an average of 30 to 40 minutes, with some even completing basically all the content I've implemented in around an hour or so, which is very encouraging, but it also shows that there's clearly some more work I need to do. But that's probably for another devlog. That's all for this devlog. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.